Hello everyone. So in this video we're going to be talking about damage and destruction. I know many of you who are dealing with narcissists, you wonder, how can't they see it? How are they just oblivious to it? Or are they just masters at playing dumb? At living in some alternate reality? It can be very confusing sometimes, and it may make you wonder, what is really going on with them? Do they just not see it? Because narcissists do leave a trail of destruction wherever they go, whether they realize it or admit it or not. Many of you may have experienced emotional and psychological damage, isolation and social consequences, financial and professional setbacks, physical health decline, a loss of identity and self-worth. And most narcissists that you may be dealing with, they're not realizing it. They're not seeing it. But what typically does happen for the few narcissists who do come to this realization, where they realize the harm, the damage that they have caused, it's because they've lost control and they see their victim moving on, or they face the consequences of their actions. That is what causes a narcissist to become self-aware, to the point where they then realize that they were the ones who ruined everything. That's what causes it to happen. The thing with these narcissists, with most of you, they still have control over you. You're not moving on, or you're unable to move on, and they're still getting supply from you, and they haven't been held accountable. They haven't faced the consequences of their actions. So why would they have to realize anything? Why would they ever have to see the damage that they've caused? And actually, this is why they're so controlling. This is why they engage in gaslighting. This is why they remain attached to you and they don't ever want to let you go. It's because that is what prevents them from being alone. And if they were to be alone by themselves, well, they had to see their own reflection and they had to deal with their own thoughts, their own actions, then they would begin to realize it. So you can see that all of their actions are designed to prevent them from ever having to realize what they've done. And then they also gather all of their enablers and flying monkeys. They band together over this false narrative because they know that if they were ever alone, if they were ever left to themselves without any support, they would have to reflect on the fact that they've caused a lot of harm. And that isn't cool. There is nothing good about that. So this is why, to remain in denial, they have to remain in control of you and prevent you from moving on, prevent you from healing and realizing the truth about what you went through. Because otherwise, of course, if your independence, if your solitude, if your healing was in alignment with their false narrative, then they would just go and let you do it. They would let you be alone. They would let you just be in control of yourself and deal with it. If it was to be true that you were the one who was the cause of it. And this is why everything they do is designed to prevent you from being in solitude, from living a healthy life, from healing. Because you are the truth. Because what they did to you was wrong. You didn't deserve it. And they were bad, they were the perpetrators. That's why they don't want you to move on. They don't want you to heal. They don't want you to realize the truth. Because the truth is against them. And the truth is what they never want to accept, because it would take a lot of work for them to take accountability and to heal. And even if they did go on that path, they already know that no one would ever accept them. And this is why most narcissists, they will refuse to accept blame. And this is really because they lack self-awareness. They don't even know who they are. They lack emotional depth. And they have almost an inability to process shame. It's too painful for them to deal with. They lack the internal strength. So rather than so much realizing the damage that they've caused, even if they do realize it, they're not going to accept it. They're not going to do anything about it. Instead, they will refuse blame, live in denial, rewrite reality to their liking, to whatever fits their narrative, and shift the blame onto you. Because they have fragile egos that can't handle admitting fault. So they will use manipulation, entitlement, and grandiosity to avoid accountability. It's only the narcissists who have some self-awareness, who can recognize their mistakes, who may feel guilt or shame, sometimes leading to depression, and then may try to make amends. But even then, even those narcissists may make amends for selfish reasons, because maybe they're more intelligent and they see it as though that if they made amends, that would be more in their best interest, rather than self-sabotaging. But really, most narcissists, they're never going to see or admit that they were the cause of the destruction. They will deny reality. They will blame the victim. They will accuse you of being the problem. They will overreact. Or they will even say that you caused their bad behavior. They will twist facts to make themselves look like the victim. They will protect their ego at all costs, because admitting fault would shatter their false self-image. So they're going to fight to avoid it. And even if they do realize it deep down that they ruined everything, they're rarely going to admit it openly. Instead, they will project their guilt and shame onto you and make you feel responsible for the pain that they caused. And this is why whenever you get involved with them, whenever you're around a narcissist, it just muddles with your brain. It leaves you feeling confused, broken, and full of self-doubt. This is because the narcissist does not live in the same world as you do. They live in a false reality. They operate with a false character. And everything that they do to you, everything that they do in general, it's all so that they can avoid having to look at themselves. They don't ever want to have to deal with themselves. They already know they're no good. They want nothing to do with themselves. They want nothing to do with reality. They live for the fantasy. And of course, this is why they're so empty, they're so miserable. This is why when you're around them, they're so defeatist, pessimistic. Because they've already given up on themselves. They already know that they're no good. And this is why they just engage in manipulation, gaslighting. They gave up on reality a long time ago. They gave up on themselves a long time ago. And this is why they're so envious and jealous of you. Because if there's one thing you still have, even after everything they've done to you, you still have yourself. They don't. And you're still connected to reality, and that triggers and exposes them. If this video is making sense to you, give it a thumbs up. Let's work together to get this out there. But if you're dealing with someone who is revealing an inability to see or admit fault, now listen closely to this. It's a strong indicator that you are dealing with someone who is high on the narcissistic spectrum. And the higher they are on that spectrum, the more rigid their defense mechanisms become. So if you're just dealing with a mild to moderate narcissist, they might occasionally admit small mistakes, especially if it benefits them. But they will still struggle with deep self-awareness. Now, those narcissists who are severe, and now I'm talking about those who are very high on the spectrum, maybe even entering sociopathy or psychopathy. They will outright deny, project, and gaslight, no matter how obvious their wrongdoing is. It doesn't matter how clear it is. It could be clear as day. It could be right in front of your eyes. You could have all of the evidence of the world and you could put it right in front of them and they will still deny it. This is what sociopaths and psychopaths are like. They just cannot handle the idea that they were wrong, because their entire false self, their entire false reality depends on this illusion of superiority. And this is why, honestly, it doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what you say, it doesn't matter how much evidence you have, it doesn't matter how clear it is, it's not going to make a difference. You're never going to get genuine accountability from them if they are high in the spectrum. And in fact, the more that you try to push for the truth, the more that they will twist reality to protect themselves. You're never going to pull them into reality. You're never going to get them to accept themselves. Now, of course, someone who isn't so high in the spectrum, someone who isn't highly narcissistic, sociopathic, or psychopathic, they're going to be more connected to reality. They're going to be more connected to themselves. And so they will be able to accept fault and blame. They're not going to run away from it. So really, it doesn't make a difference how much damage they've caused or how obvious it is. Even if they do see it, even if they see the failed relationships, the lost opportunities, you walking away, they will still never accept that they were the cause. They will blame you. They will say that you were too sensitive, you betrayed them, or you just don't understand them. They will change the narrative to make themselves look like the victim or hero. They will justify their actions. They will convince themselves in their minds that their behavior was necessary, or that someone else forced them to act that way. They will always have some justification. Every abuser has an excuse. But the reality is that abuse is very toxic and unhealthy. It is the result of trauma. And no person, if they can't even accept their own actions, they're not living in reality. They're in a completely different world. And this is why they're so envious and jealous of your authenticity and independence. Because you being alone is very different to them being alone by themselves. They don't ever want to be alone by themselves. They don't ever want anything to do with themselves. They're going to continue living in their delusion rather than facing the painful reality that they were the problem all along. And if they lose control over you, their need for dominance and validation will make them hound you even more. They're not going to reflect on their own mistakes. They're going to blame you for the downfall. They're going to seek revenge and reassert control. They're going to tell everyone, including themselves, that you abandoned them or betrayed them. And they will just ignore the fact that their behavior caused anything. And they may even feel like they lost, even though it was the result of their own actions. So then they will escalate their tactics to prove that they still have power over you. It's all just about preserving their false image, punishing you for leaving them, and avoiding this painful truth that yes, they were the ones who ruined everything. So most of them are never going to accept it. They're never going to look at themselves and think that they were at fault. They're going to blame you for their actions. And of course, it's not going to make it any better for them. How could it make anything better when they're just continuing to run away from themselves and their actions? They're running away from reality. And this is why they're so obsessed with you, dominating and controlling you, because you are that catalyst, that escape. That's what you are to them. By being with you, they get to dump their toxicity onto you, their feelings about themselves. So they get to run away from themselves just by being around you, controlling you, keeping you trapped. And so, while when they have control over you, they may seem happy, confident, and successful, but that's just the false self. And the false self is never going to truly fulfill them, no matter how much supply they get. And this is why they are constantly seeking external validation, because of this chronic emptiness. They cannot experience emotional depth. This is why you could never have a genuine connection with them. Because there's always this elephant in the room. There's always their actions that they refuse to accept, the problems that they have caused. This is why you can't connect to them. You can only connect on a surface level. It's just more attachment. There's no deep connection with narcissists because they don't even accept themselves. So if they're not even connected to their real self, how can you connect to them? You can't. A person must connect to themselves first. And so without real emotional depth, they crave constant stimulation to escape their inner void. And this is why they're always so paranoid and insecure. They're always fearing that you may expose them or that they may lose control over you. Because again, by no longer having that influence and control over you, they are then left alone with themselves, with the monsters that they have become. And they do not want to be left alone with that. This is why they do everything they can to try and run away from it. And this is inevitably how they end up burning bridges and never forming deep, lasting connections, because they don't accept themselves. They're disconnected from themselves. They don't want anything to do with themselves. And this is why their entire lives is just completely fake. Their entire life is a lie. And they just use tactics. They manipulate and gaslight people. Like when you met them at the beginning, they acted like there was something else. And then they had to devalue you, gaslight you. But as they get older, their tactics, which they use as defense mechanisms and to protect their false image and their fragile egos, these gradually begin to lose effectiveness. And this is why many of them, they're left in isolation. They experience failed careers and finances. They sabotage themselves. They're no longer as charming and influential as they once were. Because with age, their ability to manipulate and attract new supply weakens. Which is why when you see many of them in old age, they're so bitter and resentful. They're very angry people. And they're always so quick to blame other people for their disappointments. This is what they're like. They're not happy with themselves. They're not happy with their lives. And their entire life is really just a performance for them to avoid ever having to just live life. They can't just live life like we do. This is why they hate it, to see you just living life. You just having a normal day without their control and influence. Because they're constantly being controlled and influenced. They're constantly being haunted by their past, by the things that they have done to people. Deep down they know that they're no good. And this is why you never get anything real, you never get any vulnerability from them. You can never be in reality with them. You can never be yourself. You always have to play pretend when you're around them. You can never be real. Because they're not real. They're living in an alternate reality. They're operating with a false self, who in their minds can't do anything wrong, hasn't done anything wrong. They're almost crazy. And they're never going to change because they don't want to change. For them to change, it would require deep introspection. They would have to go within themselves, and that's the last thing they want to do. They want to continue with the cycle. They will cling to their false reality even as their life crumbles around them. They will choose their false image over everyone and everything, because it's the only thing that matters to them. They loathe their true self. They don't want to take any accountability for their actions. They want nothing to do with reality. And this is why, when you bring in truth, reality to them, they just play dumb. They just act like they don't see it. They just deny it. They run away from it. They just gaslight you. They just try and abuse you even more. They just try and they see something wrong with you, with how you're interpreting them. And this is why many of you end up so confused. You end up where you just can't even think straight anymore. It's because they're trying to pull you out of reality, because it benefits their narrative. Because by you being in reality, by you living in truth, you are a threat to them. And also they're very jealous of that. because they don't get to have a true self. They don't get to be authentic. They don't get to live in reality. They don't have all of these inner feelings of joy and abundance like you do. All they have is a void because they refuse to accept themselves. And this is how they're able to move on so quickly. This is how they could just forget about you like you never meant anything to them, like you never had any influence over them. Because they're just constantly searching for external validation. People who will validate the false self. People who will let them live in their little fantasy world. And it's the very thing that caused them to destroy everything with you. Their feelings of emptiness, insecurity, and their need for control. This is what caused them to destroy everything with you. And it's why they will continue on that same path with other people as well. Just as they did with other people before you. And it's because they refuse to take responsibility. So they never learn or grow. And instead they will repeat the cycle. Instead of reflecting, they will double down on their delusions. They will rewrite the story to make themselves the victim or hero. And they will seek new supply. They will try to fill their void with fresh attention, admiration, or control over someone else. But of course, with that type of behavior, someone who's not even grounded in reality, someone who can't even accept themselves, they can't even see what's wrong with their actions, they're just going to continue to lose. And the more they do, the angrier they will become. And they will still refuse to see that it is them. So no matter what you do, no matter what you try and tell them, they are going to continue on that same self-destructive path. And it's because their disorder prevents them from taking real accountability. They may act like they've moved on, but underneath it all, underneath everything that they're presenting to you, they still remain trapped in a cycle of emptiness, blame, and failure. And doesn't every behavior just reveal that fact to you? You can clearly see this is someone who is very empty, because all they do is just endlessly take from you. And no matter what they do, no matter what they get from you, it's never enough. You can see that they are empty inside. All they have is a void. And they're always going to be that way. They're always going to be just angry, miserable people. Blaming us for their actions, for everything that they destroyed. Because they don't ever want to look at themselves. They don't ever want to deal with themselves. They don't ever want anything to do with reality. And this is why they will hold on to us, because where is reality for them? Where is the truth? Where is their true self? It's within themselves. They bury it deep down. And this is why they never want to be alone. This is why they will never let you go. They will continue to hound you down and hold you accountable for their failures. Because the last thing they want is ever to be alone with themselves and to accept the monsters that they have become. Because they refuse to accept blame, they need a scapegoat. And for many of you, that is you. You are their scapegoat. They blame you for everything. If anything goes wrong, it's always your fault. They villainize you. And then they get everyone else around to do the same thing. Because all of those other people are exactly the same. They're all living in denial. They all lack authenticity. You try and sit down and have a conversation with any of them and try and get them to accept the raw truth. You can't, because they're all the same. And it's just you. You're the only one who is authentic. You're the only one who is living in truth. And that's what they don't want you to know. You're the only one who has a true self. This is why they despise your authenticity. They despise your independence. They despise your intelligence, your truth-telling, because that all exposes them. It is a threat to them. And this is how they manage to enforce flying monkeys and run smear campaigns, because all of these people are fake. And so it's a mutual benefit for all of them to manipulate and gaslight you, to confuse you, and to blame you for everything. That benefits everyone involved. And that's why they do what they do. Because none of them ever want to live in reality. None of them ever want to accept themselves. You're the only one who wants to. You're the only one who wants to live in truth. No one else does. And that's why many of you find yourself watching my videos, because you're searching for the truth. You can't find it in anyone else. No one wants to see it or admit it, because they're all exactly the same. And if that was not true, then why can't you sit down and have a conversation with any of them about stuff like this? About things that were done to you? Why does no one want to accept it? Why does everyone live in denial? All of the things that you experienced. Childhood sexual abuse. Nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody will validate your experiences. Why not? Because they're all fake. They're all in denial. And if you try and talk about it, if you try and speak up, they're just going to blame you. They will blame the victim, not the abuser. Because they're all exactly the same. They're all living in a false reality. They all have a false self. And you are the ones who are watching this. You are the only ones who are authentic and just want to be real. None of these other people do. And this is why many of you gravitate towards real content just like this. It vibes with you. Even if it's painful, even if it hurts to think about it, it's still real. It's the state of things as they actually are, as opposed to an idealistic notion of them. And, you know, everything I say in my content, it's all real. I'm just all about truth. I hate lies. I hate fake people. Or rather, I don't hate the people. It's more that I hate what they do. Because again, you know, hating, it's really just feeding the pendulum anyway. It's allowing it to grow. So let's not hate anything. Let's just be aware of it and make mature and responsible decisions. These people are very immature and they revert to primitive defense mechanisms because they're just trying to hide the truth that they hold inside. And this is why they will keep hounding you. They will try and suck you back in with fake apologies, guilt trips, or love bombing. They will spread lies to make you look like the villain. And even years later, they may say that you ruined their life, or they could have been successful if not for you. And many of them, they will even engage in stalking and harassment. They will escalate to obsessive behavior, constantly checking in on you, interfering with your life. Again, it's an escape. This is a form of escapism for them. And now tell me, what are they escaping from? They're escaping from themselves. They want nothing to do with themselves. This is why they hound us down. This is why they harass us. This is why they lie and blame us for everything. It's because deep down they know that they're no good. They know that they brought everything on themselves through their actions. They know that they are at fault. They know that with them out of the picture, things would have turned out very differently. And this is why many of them, what do they try and do? They try and drive you insane. They try and make it so that you're no longer connected to reality. Or they try and drive you to suicide. Why do they do these things? Again, it benefits their false narrative. If they can drive you insane, then all of that truth that you were living in no longer means anything, coming from an insane person. This is why they want to drive you nuts. Because you live in truth. This is why they're running from the truth. This is why they want to tip you over the edge. They want to get you to take your own life. Because then without you here, you're no longer there to tell the truth. And then they could just say that you were crazy, you were depressed. And that's why. This is why this is a goal for many of them. And this is why it really just brings them an endless amount of supply. To push you over the edge. Or to drive you clinically insane. Or to discredit you, sabotage you, make you lose your job, make you homeless. Because then they could just say, you were no good. You weren't good enough. Or you were crazy. It confirms their false narrative. But what they don't ever want is for you to hold on to your sanity and for you to move on, be independent and become successful. Because that then, it interacts with their false narrative about you. Again, they're living in a false reality. They can't accept the truth. The truth is that you're not all of the things that they said you were. The truth is that everything they said about you, everything bad at least, that's what they are. That's what they're projecting onto you. That's what they don't want to accept about themselves. And that's where they remain tied to you so they can unload all of this onto you. This is why they never want you to have a clear mind. This is why they never want you to be away from them. Because they know that you in a sound mind, you at a distance from them, you then realize the truth. You become a threat and you may expose them. This is why they want to keep you all in the mix with them. But where you're at a disadvantage, not where you have the power to expose them, because again, they never want to live in reality. They don't want anything to do with it. They're all fake people. Fake, empty, miserable people who need constant sources of supply, people who they can run into the ground so that they can feel better about themselves. And this is why they will constantly check on you. They will try to interfere with your life. They will cause all sorts of disruption, sabotage, for this reason. Because just you being you, it exposes them. They can't project all of this stuff onto you then. And this is why we talk about no contact, because you're dealing with a crazy person who was to make you think that it's you. So you really need to cut contact as much as you can. Do not engage with them. Any response at all, even anger, it will fuel them. Instead, you need to focus on healing. Focus on living in truth. And to stop carrying their blame. Remember, it is not your fault. These were their actions. They brought this on themselves. They did this to themselves and to you. So do not blame yourself. And instead focus on reclaiming your peace and self-worth. Because that is your truth. You know what you went through. You know what they did to you. And you know how you did everything. You sacrificed your life for them. You know that's the truth. And this is why if you hold on to this truth, you will then reclaim your peace from within, rather than through external validation like them. This is how this will work for you. Because you are real. They're not. This is why they need all sorts of external stimulation. They constantly need an escape. They need a target, a scapegoat, to help them to continue living in their delusions. They can never be in reality. And this is why they always want you to tune out. They want you to dissociate, because you being in reality where they're not, you being connected to a self that they don't have, this is all poses a threat to them. It all exposes them. It pulls them into reality as well. So you just got to understand their pattern of behavior. It does not matter what they say. The fact is that you were never the problem. You were the victim. These things were done to you. They did these things to you. And that is not your fault. You are not to blame for that. But this is what they do. They do things to their victims, and then they blame them as well. And it's because deep down they know that they are horrible people. And that does affect them. It affects them so much that even they want nothing to do with themselves. Even they want nothing to do with reality. You think they like themselves? You see how they act. Some of them are so grandiose. They act arrogant. They act like they're living their best lives. Try and get them to sit down and have a conversation. Ask them some questions about real life, about things that they have actually done. And then you'll see just how much they like themselves, just how much they like their lives. They hate it. They can't stand it. If there's one thing they hate more than anything else, it is themselves. They hate reality. This is why you can't even get them to sit down and talk. You can't get them to tell you anything. You try and sit them down, you ask them some questions, they will lie, they will gaslight you, they will deny it all. And that's how you know there is no peace within themselves. They're never going to be at peace. They're going to live a life full of misery, and they know that, and that is why they hound you down. That's why they stalk you. They try and make your life miserable because that's how it is for them. But they know inside of you In your true authentic self, you have peace. Because you are real. And you never lied, you were always telling the truth. That's why they've got to get you to dissociate. They've got to try and erase you. Because they know that what you have, that's good. But don't ever be fooled by their false image. These people are miserable. They're absolutely miserable. Don't ever think that they got the last laugh over you. They're never going to be happy. And honestly, I feel bad for them. I can show some compassion for them because that is the ultimate karma, the ultimate punishment for them. They're never going to like themselves. They're never going to be happy with themselves. They're never going to just live a real life. They're always going to be disconnected. They're never going to want anything to do with themselves. And that's their fate. That's their karma. You don't have to worry about what they're doing, where they're going. Doesn't matter how things are looking for them now. It's all fake. It's all a delusion. And this is why they're constantly seeking an escape. They need all of these people to validate it, to prop it up. Nothing's coming from within. So don't ever think that they got the last laugh. Honestly, if you knew what they're going through, and I'm sure many of you've seen it, and how they treat you, and the amount of suffering that they've caused you, you think someone like that really likes themselves? Someone like that is really feeling good? Someone like that is living their best lives after what they did to you? Of course not. They're always going to be miserable. That's never going to change. And in fact, the more they come after you, the more they hound you, the more it's going to get even worse for them. The more they're going to despise themselves. The more they're going to hate reality. And honestly, that's just their fate. That's their own karma. And I won't lie, I do feel bad for them. Because that is a real punishment. Honestly, I can't imagine anything worse than that. As someone who, I accept myself, I love the person that I am. And many of you know my story, I didn't used to. Because of the things that were projected onto me, I began to hate myself as well. But then I realized that's not me. They're just blaming me for the things that they did to me. And then I began to wake up. And that's how now I do love myself. I do accept myself. And I find joy within myself. I'm satisfied with myself. I'm satisfied with life. And that light is something they will never be able to take from you, no matter how much they try. That is yours to keep. As long as you continue to accept yourself and reality, you continue to accept the truth. Because this is their goal. It's to provoke you, to get you all worked up, so that you do something out of character, you say or do something that's not really you. And then you end up just like them. Then you want nothing to do with yourself as well. You want to live in a false reality. That's their ultimate goal, is to pull you into that, to where you don't want to live anymore. If they can't get you out of reality, then they will try and make it so that you don't want to live anymore. Or they'll try and drive you insane, so that you're no longer connected to reality at all. Because that's how it is for them. They could never accept themselves. The things that were done to them in their childhood and the things that they have done to people. They could never accept reality, the truth. This is why they don't want to talk about it. This is why they're always seeking an escape. And this is why we always have problems with them. Because we can accept it. And we want to hold them accountable. This is why, no matter what they do to you, you remain strong. Because what happens with them, when you bring the truth to them, you bring reality, I can tell you, they feel an overwhelming amount of tension building up inside of themselves. This is what happens just before you see that narcissistic injury. In their gut, they feel an overwhelming amount of tension coming up, and you can see it on their face. You can see they're going through it, and then they lash out at you because they can't deal with that. They can't overcome it. Their internal battles of just having to accept the person that they are, because normally in their daily life they're just living in a fake world. They're not even in reality. They're not in the same world as us. They're not connected to themselves, and then they encounter you, you hold them accountable for something, and they lack that internal strength to overcome it. They can't deal with the tension. And so they unload it onto you. This is what happens. And they want the same thing that happened to you. They want you to be so distraught with all of the things that have been done to you and all of the times that you have reacted in ways that you're not proud of, to the point where if someone tries to talk to you about what's happened, you get that same amount of tension building up and you don't have the strength to deal with it. And then you start seeking an escape yourself. You start resorting to unhealthy coping mechanisms, strategies like binge drinking, drugs, just constantly seeking an escape. That's what they want for you, because that's how it is for them. That's how it's always going to be for them. It's never going to change. It's never going to get any better. They're always going to feel miserable, empty, always seeking advice. And that's why they can't stand you. That's why they can't stand the truth. But yeah, this is why you need to guard yourself, because they're going to only continue to blame you. They're going to continue to project onto you because that's all that they can do. They can't ever go within. They can't ever live in their truth. They have no truth. All they have is a fake life. But guys, for you, you hold on to your truth. And I know, I get it. It can be humiliating. Let's keep it real, it can. It can feel like something we should feel ashamed of. The things that have been done to us, the things that they put us through. It's like dehumanizing. It makes us want to run away from ourselves. And let's not forget the things that we have said and done. All of the times that they provoked us and we acted in ways that we wouldn't normally. It's difficult to accept ourselves sometimes. It is. And you know, that's why we have these supportive communities for you, where we can discuss this together and let you know that you're not alone. We are all here with you. And I can tell you, as I've spoken about in past live videos, I've had some horrible things done to me throughout my life. Things that before I was very ashamed of. It was very humiliating for me to even think about it, let alone talk about it. And also the ways that I've acted too. I've definitely acted in ways that I'm not proud of. But remind yourselves this. Would you have acted in that way if you were not excessively provoked? They were deliberately pushing you to get reactions out of you. That's not really you. They molded you into being that type of way. So let that go. Forgive yourself. And just focus on healing. Yes, you may feel angry. You may be upset about what was done to you. But you can heal those feelings. You can work through it. You just need to accept those emotions, process them. That's what it's all about. That's what our healing is. It's the emotional processing. Being present with yourself and accepting it, accepting what was done. Because really what continues the trauma, what continues the feelings of emptiness is the dissonance. It's where you don't fully accept it because it's painful to accept. But that acceptance is very important. And as for them, you know, there's nothing you can tell them sometimes. Doesn't matter how much evidence you have. Let them continue with their delusions. Let them continue to pretend like they're doing good. When they're not, it's all a lie. You think you're going through something, just imagine what they must be going through to where they have to do all of these things, to where they ended up treating you that way, to where they're now having to live a lie for the rest of their life. You imagine what somebody must be going through to have to live a lie for the rest of their lives. They can't even confront you. They can't even be real with you. Imagine what they're going through in their minds. You think that person isn't dealing with their karma? You think they haven't received their punishment? They have. And this is why I personally, as you can see, I'm not so angry. I mean, of course, you know, I'm very passionate about my work and about helping you. But I'm not angry about anything that's personally been done to me. Not at this point, anyway. I'm usually just a very calm, peaceful person. And, you know, to think of how these people, they live a lie. You know, they can never live in truth. You know, in order for them to continue that behavior for the rest of their lives, I can't help but have some compassion for them. And this is why I am compassionate towards narcissists. Because for them to dissociate to no end, to endlessly run away from themselves, the truth, reality, I can't even comprehend the amount of pain they must be going through. I can't even imagine it. To where they would want to run away from this beautiful life. To the point where they can't even experience it. They constantly need external validation. They need supply. And no matter how much supply they get, it never works. It never satisfies them. They're never fulfilled in anything. And this is why, you know, like I always say, revenge is not the answer. That's going to harm you. That's just going to delay your healing. You focus on dealing with the trauma. And don't worry about them. Forget about what they're doing. Because with anything, I mean, all they're really doing is chasing a feeling that they will never have, a feeling that they will only see in other people, a feeling that they saw in us initially when they targeted us. And all of these things they try and use to distract themselves, inevitably it's all going to fall short. All of the money, the cars, the relationships, none of this is going to fulfill them. None of it is going to give them that feeling that you get. None of it will. They will never get that. They will never have it. And do you know why? Because they refuse to accept the truth. They refuse to accept themselves. And that's why they will always be comparing themselves with other people. They will be very envious and jealous, constantly scrolling through their social media, constantly monitoring you, looking at any little thing you got, any little thing you're doing. They'll always be doing that until the end of their lives. And that's never going to change. It's never going to get any better for them. They're always going to be an outsider, an observer. And that's just going to be their life. And, you know, they want to try and make us an audience of their life. They want to try and twist it around on us. And some of us, yeah, we fall for it sometimes because we don't realize it's all fake. It's all a performance just for you, to try and show you that they got the life, they stole your life. They've got the feeling that they wanted from you, but they'll never get that. They'll never have that energy, that enthusiasm, that passion, that inner fullness. And you know, that's how I'm able to do these videos for such a long time, is because inside I feel full. I just feel like I have so much to give. I have so much to pour into you. They will never have that feeling of fullness, satisfaction. As an analogy, it's kind of like maybe you're eating a meal and maybe you ordered a side and you eat part of the meal, you can't finish it anymore. You're already full. So then you're able to give to someone else. They'll never have that feeling of being full, satisfied, where you can be positive, you can feel abundant, you can feel powerful, free. It's never going to be like that for them. They're never going to have that because they're never going to live in truth. They're never going to accept the reality of what they have become. And that is their karma. So it doesn't matter. They don't want to accept the truth. They don't want to look at the evidence, even if you put it right in front of them. That's fine. Let them run away from themselves. Let them run away from reality. And stop feeling bad for them. Stop feeling bad for their misery, their emptiness. It's their fault. It's their own problem. You've given them enough chances. If they were to continue on that path, let them do it. They're not your responsibility anymore. You can't fix them. But many of us, as I said, just because we can heal ourselves, we try to heal other people as well. We can't do it. It's not our job to. We don't have the ability to do that. So if they want to continue in denial, in their delusions, then that's fine. And we have to let them go. We have to let them continue without a self, without truth. And that's just the way that it has to go. We can show compassion from afar, but that's really all that we can do. And as for ourselves, we have to continue on that path. We cannot go where they're going. We must live in truth. We must accept what happened. And we also must give people opportunities to change, to be better, if it is genuine. And of course, use discernment, because many of them, they use this as a tactic. But if someone is genuinely wanting to change and be better, then of course, you know, that's our truth. we must give them somewhat of an opportunity to do that. "97 live viewers, give it a thumbs up if you found this helpful so far. C. Lich says they want to be inside you, every level. That's it. They want you to filter everything through them so that they can live vicariously through you. Because that's how they feel somewhat whole. They don't feel good by themselves on their own. And as for us, I mean, they make it so that we want to be inside them, so that we can fix them and make them happy. As for them, they want to take the feelings that we've got. Aaron Michaels says they'd rip your skin off and wear it if they could. Oh, they probably would. I mean, that's a good one. I know one, they would take the shirt off your back. But yeah, rip your skin off, they probably would. They'd probably do a brain transplant with us. Swap brains, swap bodies, everything. It'd be like Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Because think about it, I mean, they take everything else. They'll steal your money from you. They'll steal your possessions. They take credit for your success. Why wouldn't they just take our bodies too? They probably would. Because they're absolutely insane. They're not happy with themselves at all. And that's really what this is when they get around us. It's an energy swap. They steal our characteristics, steal our money, try to steal our homes. They just want everything that's ours because they don't like themselves. They want to pretend to be something else. Leslie for Esparza says they would watch you bleed out. Oh, they would. They love to see us in pain. But just think about it. How messed up in the mind has someone got to be to enjoy seeing us in pain? We never did anything to them. All we ever did was try and help them. It's because they're constantly in pain. Even as you're trying to do everything for them, they're dominating you, you're under their control, they're still in pain. They're still just trying to run you into the ground even more. They're never happy. Amanda Surrey says, had eye contact with him once. I paid him a compliment. He looked so shocked and quickly looked away. That could be a lack of control. So maybe he wasn't prepared for that. Maybe he was expecting conflict or confrontation. So you just caught him off guard and he wasn't ready for it. They like to be in control of everything, including compliments. They want it when they're ready. Aaron Michael says, definitely a brain transplant with the minds we all have compared to them. That's just it, this is how you know they're happy with themselves, because they want enmeshment. We want separation. We want to be individuals. I mean, yeah, we were looking for a relationship. We wanted to come together with someone, but as two separate individuals. We didn't want to combine as one person. That's what they want to do because they're not happy with themselves. So actually, for them, having to be a separate person with someone, that's their worst nightmare. They don't want to be separate. That causes them to feel envious and jealous. That's why they want to be close. They want enmeshment. They want to dominate and control you for that reason. They don't want it to be like two separate people coming together. They want to have that fusion, enmeshment. As for us, that's our worst nightmare. It feels suffocating, overwhelming. And it may even cause us to feel avoidant ourselves, because we need that separation. We want to feel like ourselves. We want to interact with a separate person. We don't want to be an extension of someone else. They do, because they view you as greater than them, and they want to own you. Layla says, remind me of the song Grenade by Bruno Mars. If my body was on fire, you'd watch me burn down in flames. Yeah, that's really what it's like. And it's not because they hate you, it's because they hate themselves. You just make them feel inferior. They know they don't deserve you. That's why they can't stand you. You just remind them how awful they are. Ellie Wen says they do get a rush watching us suffer, struggle, get toyed with, abused. I think again, that goes back to this internal tension that they don't want to deal with or reflect on. And especially when they're triggered, they just want to put us through it. They want us to go through it for them. Which, initially it kind of medicates them in the moment, but it's only going to be temporary. It's not going to heal them. There's nothing healing about harming another person, sacrificing them. That's damaging to them as well. It doesn't make anything better for them. Leslie for Esparza. I don't think I can read that out. It's so bad. But, anything they do or say, they're really just trying to reach a tipping point. They're trying to reach a certain threshold. And this is why sometimes their actions are so extreme, because they're hoping to reach that point, but they feel like it's enough, as though they've achieved some level of power from doing that. And you could just really wind them up by just saying something more extreme. And I don't mean insulting them, just you can just top whatever they say or do. Or just say, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you say that? But that can be dangerous though. You might be egging them on. But it's all about power. They feel powerless and helpless. So then they think, oh, what if I do this? What if I say this? What if I impact you in this way? Then I can feel powerful. So it's kind of like, if a narcissist stole, if they stole $100,000 from you, you could say, oh, yeah, well, you didn't steal $100 million, so it's not that bad. Then it takes your power back, because they're trying to reach a certain threshold where they feel like they've got power over you, leaving you powerless, so that it validates them. So you can just remain unaffected. Just act like it's not a big deal to you. Use the grey rock, it will really wind them up. Because of course, they want to feel like they've done something impactful as a source of power. This is how you see, like with psychopaths, some of them, they become serial killers because it gives them a power trip. It's a source of validation for them. Or what you can do to really wind them up, you can just say to them, yeah, but the only reason you went on this path, the only reason you went on to do bad things and harm people, is because you knew you weren't no good for anything else. That's why. That's the only reason why bad people do bad things. It's because they know they're not good enough. And honestly, that's just it. For all of them. This is the reason why anyone says or does something bad. This is why they try and harm you, insult you. It's because they don't believe they're good enough for anything more positive. This is why they do it. Because if they believe they were good enough, then they would just do that. They don't, because they feel inadequate, so then they act as an enemy to you. And by knowing that, that really gives you the power over them. From knowing what made them make that choice. Knowing why they are on this path in life. It's because they believe they're not good enough to be righteous. They believe that even if they were trying to be good people and do good things, you wouldn't want them anyway. You wouldn't accept them. That's what they believe deep down. That's why they continue on this path. Because deep down they know they're no good for you. To the point where they don't even want to try. And that's just it, Could we even accept them if they did want to start again, if they did try to be good people? How could we give them another chance? I mean, they've already burned every bridge possible. They've already betrayed our trust in every possible way. And even made a mockery out of it. And of course, the more they do that, the more that it affects their own self-esteem. Because what hope have they got to ever be a decent person? They've just got no hope in doing that. And that's why they become more persistent, more aggressive in being this way. Because it's either that or they have to come back to their feelings of inadequacy, of trying to do something else. This is why they become so villainous. They're like demons. Well, they're like on a mission to destroy you, because otherwise, if they're not coming out on a mission to destroy you, then they have to come back within themselves and accept that they are inadequate of doing anything else. This is why. This is why they're so extreme sometimes. But yeah, I just wanted to share this video with you. Good to see we got more viewers in the chat today. And be sure to give it a thumbs up. Let's get this important message out there to as many survivors as we can. Because I know there's so many people who are going through this right now. And you know, this discussion could really help them. It could bring them clarity, understanding. Knowing how things are going to turn out for the narcissist and you know, why they act the way that they do. It's a very important video. Let's work together to get it out there. Give it a thumbs up. Thank you. And if you would like guidance or support on your healing journey, you can book a one-on-one with me today. Just go to my website, narcsurvivor.co.uk. Drop a comment down below underneath the video and in the comment section. I read your comment every day. If you would like to show your support to our community, you're welcome to donate to paypal.me/narcsurvivor. And I am available on Instagram. It is Narc Survivor YouTube. That's it for this one. Just looking out at the tropical trees in the background. Thank you all, and I will talk to you soon.